interesting with Web3. They almost seem a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong about them being inextricably linked, because one of the biggest concerns about AI, in addition to displacing jobs, is that ability to create deep fakes and what it does to erode the trust economy. The factors that we've been talking about with blockchain, et cetera, really is to reinforce the trust economy. I don't want to hone in too much on trust, but to what extent do you feel they're synergistic in terms of where the money's to be made and how to think about, frankly, developing a business in this new age?
Well, what's really interesting is probably the most famous AI person in the world, except for maybe Ray Kurzweil, is Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, right? The creator of ChatGPT. He has two projects going on right now. One is called OpenAI, and the other one is called WorldCoin. So he's got an AI project and a Web3 project, and both are deeply intertwined with one another. So he is very concerned with the exact issue that you've raised, which is in a world of deep fakes where we can recreate how people look and sound, how do you prove your humanness? How do you make sure that when it's you, people know that it's you? And you need some kind of unique identifier to do that. So WorldCoin
that's not a blue check mark.
That's not a blue check mark, which is pretty easy to fool, right? I mean, actually, I think the blue check mark thing's been a disaster, frankly. Anybody can use my name, change one letter, and get a blue check mark and impersonate pretty easily.
Agreed.
So I'm not sure the WorldCoin uses a retinal scan and as a way to prove individual people. I'm not sure that's necessarily the model, but basically what they're trying to do is create a system where every single person can prove their humanness without giving away any information about themselves, using a thing called a zero knowledge proof, which is a core building block actually of Web3, and use that as a way to access services to prove who they are, and maybe eventually receive sort of dividends or the windfall from AI. So if AI goes on to displace jobs and create all sorts of new wealth in the economy, being a user of this platform will entitle you to a share of the windfall. So what's interesting to me is that you're seeing the convergence, or what I would argue is the trivergence of three different technologies, right? So there's AI, which is the logic or reasoning layer for this new web. There's blockchains and Web3, which you can think of as sort of the commercial or transactional layer, right? A way to represent value and conduct business peer-to-peer. And then you've got the Internet of Things, the idea that we have trillions of connected devices. I mean, the WorldCoin project itself actually uses a retinal scanning orb that they hope to deploy widely around the world. So you can think of that as almost a synergy of these three different categories coming together as one. Another really interesting example with AI, since you asked about synergies, I'll just say briefly.
Yep, of course.
Large language models are only as useful as the data that goes into them. And
garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out. And you know what? The garbage in, garbage out creates lots of problems. One of them is that AI models are trained with inherent bias, right? Which is why they may actually perpetuate a lot of the prejudices that humans have because of the data that goes into it. But another issue is where did this data come from? What is its provenance? Who owns it? Is there IP that's copyright protected that is being fed into this model? And how do we think about those issues? And so with blockchains, with Web3, there's a number of different interesting projects. One's called the Ocean Protocol to basically watermark data that goes into these devices, into these large language models. They're not literally physical devices, but this software, to ensure that if data gets used for some economic purpose, that the creator actually gets fairly compensated. And I think that's a really fascinating example as well.